Hello everybody, I'm Frida Stauffer. I have just got back from taking the kids to school, and I have been reading from online sources the history of some of my ancestors. I found the Bruppacher name, which is my middle name, in well, it's not pronounced Bruppacher in German, but Bismillah. Coffee time. I'm interested. I'm just eager to learn what my ancestors went through in Europe. And this one, his name was Peter Bruppacher. Peter Bruppacher in German. He was from this end of from the part of Switzerland that speaks German, and most of the early Anabaptists originated from Switzerland. Some of the leaders who first started the movement were college educated, whatever college was at the time, and they had a moderate amount of wealth and owned property. Because when the Protestants or the Roman Catholics state church had found out that there's this movement and that it was gaining followers, they started to harass them and eventually ended up martyring many of them. They became martyrs. They were killed for their faith. And the difference between the Anabaptists and the Catholics was that the Anabaptists do not believe in infant baptism, and the Catholics baptize babies. So they disagreed with that, and they disagreed with sending their young men off to be soldiers in the army of the state church and the state. I don't know, somehow the state was more or less controlled by the church. So that's why in the United States we have the separation of church and state, because we didn't want that to happen again, that kind of thing. So the Anabaptist Peter Bruppacher was my great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. I don't know how many generations back, but he was born in 15 something, and he lived until 1640, about 1640. I don't remember which year he was born, but he lived until about 1640, roughly. But while he lived in Zurich, he was he married, and then his wife died very young, very soon after, like maybe less than a year or so. And then he got another wife, and she also died in just a few years. And then he got a third wife, and he had a couple of sons with her, and she lived the longest. And then her name was Margaret, what we would say Margaret. I don't know how they pronounced it there and then. Then they went, he'd been imprisoned a few times in Zurich, and the people who were his followers were also, their property was confiscated, they were imprisoned. They were, some of them martyred, they were killed, and because they refused to give up their faith. And the worse that the Catholic Church or the state church of the time treated them, the more followers they got, because people disagreed with what the state church was doing to them. And finally, Bruppacher had enough, and he and his family immigrated to across the border to France. There's a point in France that's not too far from Zurich. I don't know how far, but it's called Alsace in English. In the way I pronounce it now is Alsace. It was probably pronounced differently at that time, but they lived there for a while, and then eventually he actually bought property there. Eventually, I don't know what happened, but they moved to Germany from there, and in Germany he leased a farm, and they lived there until he died. He passed away in Germany. But he had 3 sons, and I guess they're also our grandfathers, or one of them is my great-grandfather, great-great-great-great-grandfather, many generations back. Furthermore, I don't know where Menno Simons came in, but at some point they were talking about a preacher who had come from the Netherlands to Zurich, and he'd been there before, and he took some of the people with him as refugees because they were having such a hard time there. They couldn't the people like the state church refused to do business with them and did a lot of economic harm to them, as well as taking their lives and imprisoning them and confiscating their properties. So life was all around just horrible for them. But the main complaint that they had against them was that they wouldn't let their sons join the army at the time, the military. And then so they weren't really fighting with them because of religion. They were fighting because they wouldn't let their sons join the army. That was mainly it. But still, for religious beliefs, they couldn't give it up, because it was a very strong belief that they didn't want their sons to go kill. They didn't want them to train as killers. Then, I haven't found the Stauffer source yet, but I know where the Bruppachers came from. At some point, Peter Bruppacher's sons must have come to America, because they, but I haven't gotten that far. I haven't been able to research their lineage yet. I don't know at what point or where they might have lived before they came here. But I know now that when the first forefather, he immigrated from Zurich, Switzerland to Alsace, France, and then across the border, because France and Germany both border Switzerland, and they share like a border there, and then they went across that border to Germany from France. Then I'm so interested. I want to know what happened and how it went. I know what happened to Prophet Muhammad and his early followers. Now I also really want to know what my forefathers went through and how they immigrated and became refugees. Prophet Muhammad and his followers were refugees for a long time. They had to go stay in what we now call Ethiopia. It was called Nubia at the time. So they stayed in Nubia for a long time until they could feel safe to return back to Arabia. But I want to study more about my ancestors because I want to teach my kids. I want them to feel that those roots, that they have these roots. But fortunately, Switzerland has, and every European country has enlightened a lot since those days. So, but I still want to know what happened and why they moved and where they moved and who was involved and how I'm related to them. This is good, important information to have. I'm happy to find it online, and I'm sure it's accurate because it aligns with what I know already. And I wish that the Mennonites, they do pass around history books about where they came from and everything, but I wish that it was more formal where everyone would know. But only people who have a deep interest will care about the history. Some people are not that curious, I guess. But it would be helpful if you knew. And I think they should have a class in their school that teaches where they lived and where they came from and what happened to them. It would be good for all the kids to know. Anyway, I'm still on the weight loss journey. I have my own journey. Not the same, I know, but I still have to lose 24 pounds to be able to get on the zip line in Kentucky in October. Should I be able to lose it? I don't know. I don't know. I'm so worried. I've lost 60 pounds so far, so I'm still working hard to try to lose that last 24 pounds so I can ride that zip line in October. Sometime between October 7th and 15th, I hope. His coffee has whipped heavy cream, not whipped, but heavy cream, heavy whipping cream. I hope you enjoyed this video.